How does something like this end up in a bug? Feeling the smooth black crystal in his pocket, Sen entered the steel armor shelter with a chip on his shoulder. For the first time since Ass Freak had plunged the dagger into Sarah's behind, Sen had a clear direction. As he walked through the plaza toward his room, he was brimming with excitement and ready to begin experimenting with the crystal in his pocket. While he made his way through the shelter, he was greeted by the cackles and glares from onlookers. "Looks like Ass Freak's back from hunting. What kind of creature do you think he tried skewering in the ass this time? Hopefully he'll soon stumble onto Son of Heaven when he's transformed into an ape. It's a shame that the Alliance doesn't monitor the shelters. If they knew that a nuance like Olsen Han was running in a place like this, you know he'd be arrested the minute he stepped into the sanctuary. Do you see how he's covered in mud? I bet that guy can't even catch an ordinary black beetle. I bet he spent hours rolling through the mud trying to capture something my 5-year-old son could do." He could hear the bitter resentment of the people around him, but he didn't care. He knew he'd always be Ass Freak to them, so why should he care to change their minds? If they knew that he had killed a sacred blood creature right outside their homes, Sen highly doubted they would continue to laugh at him. Holding his head high, Sen said nothing to those he passed on the street and continued to his room. As he swung the door open, he was greeted by his barren oasis. Never one to care much for style, the room was designed for an in-between spot for adventures. With no posters or mementos of his world on the other side of God's sanctuary, Sen enjoyed his dull room as it allowed him to focus and was the sanctuary away from the horrible nickname Ass Freak. Before even settling down his pack, Sen set about preparing a stew to cook down the remainder of the Sacred Blood Golden Beetle's shell. With every creature, there was an opportunity to gain more Geno points by eating the beast with a maximum of 10 points from every creature. Having gotten 7 Geno points already from eating the meat, Sen might have the chance to get 3 more out of the shell if he boiled it into a stew. Heading over to his small kitchen, which was nothing more than a pile of firewood in a crate, Sen prepared the small fire in the center of the room. If electronics worked in God's sanctuary, I imagine a pot of water would boil in seconds. Primitive fires make it take forever. When the water was boiling, Sen threw the golden shell into the pot. For a moment, he wondered if he should try and add some kind of flavoring to try and enhance the taste. Maybe a dash of salt or a pinch of pepper could cover up the battery acid-like taste. But seeing the golden shimmer of the shell as the water churned, Sen knew he didn't have time to try and make something tasty. He needed the super blood Geno points as soon as possible. Letting the concoction of the golden beetle stew boil, Sen sat down at a small table to investigate the black crystal. Looking at the light of the fire reflecting on the stone, Sen knew the object had to do something more than just look pretty. It must make creatures evolve somehow. Never in his life had he heard of an ordinary black beetle turning into a sacred blood creature. With how many were on the outskirts of the steel armor shelter, there had to be stories of someone wandering onto a beetle like this before, but Sen had heard nothing. Inspecting the sparkles inside the crystal, Sen let out a long sigh. "I know you have to do something, so show me. A crystal wouldn't have been inside a beetle without a purpose, right? Are you actually some kind of egg, or maybe you're really a beast soul?" Before Sen could come to any true conclusion of his own, he was pulled away from his thoughts by a rattling from the corner of the room. Dragging his eyes away from his newfound treasure, Sen looked up to see the cage where he had placed an ordinary green-scale lizard. While making its slipper escape, the creature pushed its head through the bars and snapped its toothless gums at Sen. Days ago, Sen had captured the stowaway lizard after it had snuck into his traveling pack on one of his many hunts. As the creature had been too fast to kill, Sen put it in a cage until he was strong enough to take it on himself. Curious, Sen approached the green-scale lizard with the stone in hand. "What's going on with you? Why are you throwing a fit?" As he grew closer, it only further excited the lizard as it attempted to push through the bars and snap at the stone. Looking at the stone, Sen raised a brow. "Are you after the crystal? Would you evolve if I used it on you?" The lizard snapped its toothless gums as if to say, yes. Cautiously, Sen unlatched the cage door and pointed the crystal at the lizard. Okay, little lizard, just evolve up a single tear, that's all I'm looking for. Turn into a primitive creature and... Ah! As Sen swung the cage door open, the lizard leapt onto Sen's hand. Surprised by the lizard's speed, Sen tried to swat it away, but it quickly climbed to the stone. In seconds, it wrapped its jaws around the stone and swallowed the crystal whole. Horrified, Sen grabbed the lizard and prayed that the stone wasn't gone. However, as he lifted the green-scale lizard to his eyeline, Sen could see the bulge in the brute's stomach. The lizard really did eat his precious crystal. Crinkling his nose, Sen put the lizard back in the cage. What am I supposed to do with you? Do I wait for you to poop it out? Should I just cut it out of you? The lizard seemed almost helpless as it rolled around with its bulging stomach. It seemed almost cruel to take out a creature that was now so helpless. Before Sen could devise a plan, the sizzling pulled his attention back to the stew. Froths of bubbles came from his pot of beetle stew as it began to boil over. Sen hurried to pull the pot off the fire. A stew made out of sacred blood creature couldn't be wasted, not even a single drop. As he poured himself out a bowl, Sen smiled. In a single day, I've already gotten 7 sacred blood geno points, and I might manage to get 3 more. How lucky am I? With a loud, satisfied slurp, Sen dived into the bowl of stew. While the stew was just as foul as the meat had been, Sen devoured the stew as if it were one of the finest cuisines on his home planet. Bowl after bowl, he shoveled the revolting golden liquid into his mouth. With every bite, he thought he could feel himself becoming stronger. Is this what it's like eating sacred blood meat? Sen wondered, staring at his transforming body. What's it going to be like when I max out all of my sacred blood geno points? I'll be unstoppable. Curious to see his points, Sen summoned his data and started reading it in his mind. Olsen Han, not evolved. Status, none. Lifespan, 200 years. Requirements for evolution, 100 geno points. Geno points gained, 79 geno points. 8 sacred blood geno points. Beast soul gained, Sacred Blood Black Beetle. Type of Sacred Blood Black Beetle beast soul, armor. Disappointed that the stew didn't give him any more geno points, Sen was delighted as he remembered the armor that he had received. How could I forget? I also got a beast soul out of that encounter with the Sacred Blood Black Beetle. I wonder what this armor looks like. As if he did so subconsciously, a golden shadow suddenly appeared out of thin air that resembled the golden black beetle. Instantly, the golden beetle flew to Sen's chest, and as it touched his skin, it turned into a golden liquid. Taken aback by the golden fluid that was now quickly spreading to the rest of his body, Sen tried to pull it away. Instead, the metallic liquid wrapped around his arm. Once it was entirely covered, the golden liquid began to harden into the shape of a medieval bracer. Looking at the rest of his body, Sen found himself covered head to toe in gothic medieval armor that was far stronger than any metal he'd seen before. This is incredible, Sen thought as he looked at his new form. I think you could launch a cannon at this thing and it wouldn't even dent it. Taking a step forward, Sen was surprised to see that there wasn't a sense of heaviness or clumsiness despite the thickness of the armor. With nearly every inch of his body being covered, it seemed there were no apparent weak points that the armor could fall to. Not only did the armor feel light, but Sen's whole body felt more weightless than before as it brimmed with its newfound energy. I've never seen something so gorgeous, Sen said as he stared at it in awe. It's far more superior than any of the primitive beast soul armors that I used to be jealous of. Focused on his new armor, Sen barely heard the sounds of twisting metal until it was too late. Surprised by the harsh noise, Sen turned around just in time to see the lizard chomping through the steel cage, making its own exit. But it wasn't the same lizard that Sen had put in that cage. It was larger, and the beast's scales now looked as hard as iron. As if it was a type of shield, it seemed that no normal blade could break through its shell. The only way that Sen knew it was the same creature was from the faint bulge of the crystal still within its stomach. Sen's eyes widened. Is this because of the crystal? If a creature eats it, does it evolve into another tier? This was even better than Sen could have hoped for. Just by feeding a creature a stone, it evolved into a higher-level beast. What would happen if he found a primitive creature? Would it evolve into a mutant? Or if he had a sacred blood creature, could a creature like that evolve? And if so, how? As the lizard hissed at Sen, it showed off its new razor-sharp teeth just before using its even sharper talons to slice through the cage's metal bars. I can't let it escape, Sen thought as he raced for the cage. Not when it has my crystal! Surging himself forward, Sen was surprised by the lightness in his own body. His lunge was more effective than he had anticipated, and Sen overshot his target, banging his golden shoulder piece into the wall. Delighted by the clumsy idiot before it, the lizard darted for the door. Panicking, Sen dove for it, only to throw himself far further across the floor and into the door. With a sickening thud, Sen accidentally blocked off the lizard's escape, forcing it to run the other way. Despite wincing from the fall, Sen couldn't help but smile. Even if he wasn't used to this new armor, it clearly was far more powerful than he had expected. From the corner of his eyes, Sen spotted the lizard climbing up the wall. Oh, no, you don't! Sen lunged for the creature, but as he wrapped his armored hands around it, the creature wiggled free. Stop moving! Ah! With its new razor-sharp teeth, the lizard chomped down onto Sen's golden glove. To his surprise, the armor was so strong that he didn't even feel the lizard's new sharp teeth. Shaking the creature off his hand, Sen grinned from ear to ear. You're going to regret that. Free of Sen once again, the green-scale lizard scurried toward Sen's stew. Not interested in sharing, Sen grabbed the soup ladle and swung it down on the lizard. With the power of the armor, Sen's strength was far greater than he expected. Not eager to be turned into a lizard burger, the lizard skittered the table and onto the stew pot. This time, Sen had learned his lesson. Knowing to hold back his strength slightly, Sen brought the ladle against the pot just in time to strike the lizard. In one hit, the lizard fell to the floor, dead. In his head, the voice rang clearly. Primitive green-scale lizard killed. No beast soul gained. Gain 0 to 10 geno points randomly. Primitive? So Sen had been right. The lizard had evolved from an ordinary creature into a primitive one because of the stone. Sen couldn't believe he had gotten so lucky with his hunt. Not only did he get a sacred blood beast soul, but he also could make his own evolved creatures. Picking up his alloy knife, Sen wasted no time in slicing open the dead lizard to get the black crystal. Sen looked at the lizard gut-covered stone and smiled. If an ordinary black beetle could transform into a sacred blood beast, I wonder what other creatures I could transform. Clutching the stone, Sen knew his options were endless, especially now that he had the power of the sacred blood geno points coursing through his veins.